My boyfriend called me disabled for bleeding too much during what turned out to be a miscarriage and then twisted my wrist when I tried to talk to him about getting medical help. When I told his sister what he did, he slapped me across the face. I, 24F, have been with Harold, 26M, for about 3 years now. We met through mutual friends at a game night and started dating a few months after that. He works in sales and I work as a teacher at an elementary school. Things were mostly good between us for the first 2 years. We moved in together last year into his apartment, which made sense because my lease was ending and his place was bigger. His sister Jen, 26F, is actually one of my closest friends. We met through Harold but became really close on our own. She lives about 20 minutes away from us. The whole thing started about 3 weeks ago on a Thursday night. I went to bed around 11 after grading some papers. Harold came to bed around midnight after playing games with his friends online. Everything seemed normal. I woke up around 3 in the morning and knew something was wrong immediately. The pain in my lower stomach was unlike anything I had experienced before. I have always had pretty manageable periods. Some cramping but nothing that ever stopped me from going about my day. This was completely different. When I moved my legs I realized they were wet. I reached down and my hand came back covered in blood. I turned on my phone flashlight and saw that his sheets were soaked through. The blood had gone through my underwear and pajama pants and was all over everything. I started crying partly from the pain and partly because I was so embarrassed about ruining his bedding. The cramps were getting worse and I knew I needed to get to the bathroom, but when I tried to stand up my legs almost gave out. The pain was too intense and I felt dizzy. I shook Harold awake as gently as I could. He opened his eyes and looked annoyed right away. I told him I needed help getting to the bathroom. He asked me what was wrong, and when I moved the blanket to show him, he sat up quickly and said something under his breath. He got out of bed and came around to my side. He picked me up, but he was sighing the whole time and muttering about being tired. He carried me to the bathroom and put me down near the door. I tried to walk the last few steps to the toilet, but I could not do it. My legs were shaking and the cramps were making me double over. I called out to him that I needed to get to the bathtub because I was covered in blood and needed to wash off. He was already walking back to the bedroom. He stopped in the doorway and asked me if I could not just do it myself. I was crying at this point. I told him I could not move. He came back and helped me to the tub without saying anything. Then he left and closed the door. I sat in the tub and turned on the water. It took me about 20 minutes to clean myself up. When I came out of the bathroom, Harold was in the kitchen. I walked in and before I could say anything he said that I had ruined all his sheets. I apologized and told him I would wash them. He made this loud sigh and shook his head. I asked him if we could please not do this right now because I was still in a lot of pain. He told me to shut up and said that his sisters get their periods too and they are not dramatic about it. I felt my face get hot. I followed him when he walked away because I needed him to understand that something was actually wrong. I grabbed his arm to make him stop. He turned around and raised his voice. He said I needed to leave him alone and that I had ruined his day with my problems. He said I was acting like I was giving birth and needed to relax. Then he asked me how I expected us to build a family together if I cried at every little inconvenience. He asked how he was supposed to build a family with someone who could not even handle period cramps. I asked him if he was breaking up with me. He called me stupid and walked into the bedroom and shut the door. I spent the rest of the night on the couch. I could not sleep. The cramps continued until around 6 in the morning and then they finally started to ease up. I had to use a bunch of towels because I was still bleeding heavily. The next morning Harold left for work without saying anything to me. I waited all day for a text or a call. Nothing came. By the evening, I decided to reach out. I sent him a text saying we needed to talk. The message failed to deliver. I checked Instagram and realized he had blocked me on there too. I felt panic rising in my chest. I opened Snapchat and saw he had not blocked me there yet. I sent him a message. I apologized for grabbing his arm even though I did not think I had anything to apologize for. I just wanted him to talk to me. He showed up at the apartment about an hour later. He walked in and sat down on the couch and turned on the TV like nothing had happened. I stood there for a minute trying to figure out what to say. I told him we needed to talk about what happened. He said there was nothing to talk about. I tried to explain that I had lost a lot of blood and that was why I could not walk on my own. He said I had acted like I was disabled and asked what I would have done if he had not been there. He asked if I would have just wet myself. I told him that calling me names the night before had hurt me. He said that if I ruined his day with nonsense then I should expect him to react badly. He said anyone else would have reacted the same way. I tried to tell him that I had scheduled a doctor appointment because the bleeding was not normal. He was looking at his phone while I was talking. He was not even pretending to listen. I walked over and took his phone out of his hand so he would look at me. He grabbed my wrist and twisted it hard. I dropped the phone immediately. He picked it up and went back to scrolling. I was crying and he looked up at me and asked what I was crying about. He said I had done it to myself. I told him to get out. He stood up and left without saying anything else. I texted him that night and told him we were done. About an hour after I sent that text, Jen called me. She said Harold had come over to her place and told her that I had broken up with him out of nowhere. She said he seemed really upset and wanted to know what happened. I could not tell her the truth. I was too embarrassed. I just said we had a fight and I needed some space. She seemed worried but she did not push. I went to my doctor appointment 2 days later. The doctor did an ultrasound and some blood work. She came back into the room and sat down and told me that I had not had a heavy period. I had had a miscarriage. I did not even know I was pregnant. She explained that sometimes the body does not show typical pregnancy symptoms early on and that miscarriages in the first trimester are actually very common. She said the amount of blood loss and the severity of the cramping made sense now. She asked if I had support at home. I lied and said yes. I drove home and sat in my car in the parking lot for a long time. I kept thinking about how Harold had reacted. Part of me tried to rationalize it. He did not know what was happening. He was tired. He did not actually hit me, he just grabbed my wrist. I missed him. That sounds crazy but I did. He called me that Sunday. He said he was sorry for losing his temper. He said he had been exhausted from work and should not have taken it out on me. I told him about the miscarriage. There was silence on the other end for a long time. Then he started crying. He said he was so sorry and that he would have acted completely differently if he had known. He said he wanted to come over. He showed up with flowers and chocolate and a card he had written. The card said he loved me and wanted to spend his life with me. He said when he twisted my wrist he had not realized his own strength. He said he would never intentionally hurt me. We spent the next few days attached at the hip. He barely went to work. He kept calling me his future wife. I felt better. I thought maybe we could move past it. That Thursday there was a birthday party for one of my friends from high school. Harold came with me but he did not know anyone there except Jen. He mostly stayed with some guys he had met at previous gatherings. Jen and I were sitting outside on the patio drinking wine. We were both pretty drunk by around 10. She asked me jokingly why I had gone crazy on Harold the week before. I laughed and told her that he had actually gone crazy on me. I said that I had taken his phone and he had twisted my arm. She laughed too and said he used to do that to her all the time when they were kids. The next morning Harold asked me if I had told Jen anything at the party. I said no. He stared at me for a minute and then said he did not believe me. He said Jen had texted him asking if we were okay and mentioning something about him grabbing me. He started yelling. He said I was spreading lies to get attention and that now everyone would think he beat women. I tried to explain that I was drunk and only told his sister while we were laughing about it. I said I did not tell the whole party. He called me stupid. He said I was a crybaby and an attention seeker. He kept asking if I got the attention I wanted. I was crying and I tried to hug him to calm him down. He pushed me away. I tried again and he pushed me harder. I tried one more time and he slapped me across the face. We both froze. I had never been slapped before. My ear was ringing. He immediately started crying and saying he was sorry. He reached for me and I stepped back. He kept apologizing over and over. I told him I was leaving. He said he would drive me home. I said no. I walked out and got an Uber. I spent the rest of that day in bed. I read through some forums online about relationships and abuse. The pattern was clear. I had looked at engagement rings on his laptop the week before. Then he hit me 3 days later. I had lost a baby and lost this relationship in the same week. I blocked him on everything that evening. I have not spoken to him since. That was 4 days ago. Update 1. It has been about 2 weeks since I blocked Harold. I have not told Jen what actually happened. I know I should but I am scared. They are twins and they have always been close. I do not know if she would believe me or if she would take his side. I also do not know what Harold would do if he found out I told her everything. The slap scared me more than I want to admit. Work has been a good distraction. I threw myself into preparing for the school spring festival and stayed late most days. My coworkers probably think I am just really dedicated but really I just did not want to go home to an empty apartment. I am still living in Harold's place technically. My name is not on the lease but I have been paying half the rent through Venmo. I started looking for a new place but rent in this city is brutal and I cannot afford much on my teacher salary. Harold tried to contact me a few times through email. I blocked him there too. Then he started sending letters to the apartment. The first one was an apology. The second one was angry. He said I was overreacting and that he barely touched me. The third one said he was going to show up at my school if I did not talk to him. That one made me go to the principal and explain that I had an ex who was harassing me. The principal told me to document everything and said she would alert the front office staff to not let him in the building. I felt humiliated having to explain the situation. Last Tuesday Jen called me. She asked if I wanted to get lunch that weekend. I said yes because I missed her and because I did not want her to think something was wrong. We met at a cafe near her apartment on Saturday. She seemed normal at first. We talked about her job and about some mutual friends. Then she asked me directly why Harold and I broke up. I had rehearsed what I would say. I told her we had grown apart and wanted different things. She nodded but did not look convinced. She said Harold had told her a different story. She said he told her that I had become paranoid and jealous and had accused him of cheating. She said he was worried about me and wanted to make sure I was okay. I felt sick. He was rewriting everything. I did not correct her. I just said that breakups are hard and people remember things differently. She looked at me for a long time and then asked if he had hurt me. I froze. I did not say anything. She said Harold had seemed really off lately and had made some comments that worried her. She said their mom had noticed it too. I wanted to tell her everything but the words would not come out. I just shook my head. She dropped it after that, but I could tell she did not believe me. That night I got a text from an unknown number. It was Harold. He had gotten a new phone number to get around the block. The message said that Jen had told him we met up and that I better not have said anything to make him look bad. He said if I tried to turn his family against him he would make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was. I did not respond. I took a screenshot and saved it. The next few days were quiet. I started packing up my things slowly. I had found a studio apartment that I could afford if I was very careful with money. The lease started in 2 weeks. I was counting down the days. I had not told Harold I was moving out. I figured I would just leave and deal with the fallback later. Then on Wednesday I got a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer but something made me pick up. It was Harold's mom Carol, 52F. She said she needed to talk to me and asked if she could come by the apartment. I said yes because I did not know what else to say. She showed up an hour later with a container of food she had made. She has always been kind to me. We sat down and she asked me what happened. She said Harold had been acting strange and had told her conflicting stories about our breakup. She said Jen had told her that she thought something serious had happened between us. I started crying before I could stop myself. Carol handed me tissues and waited. I told her everything. The night I was bleeding. The names he called me. The wrist twisting. The slap. The threats. All of it. She sat very still while I talked. When I finished, she asked if I had any proof. I showed her the screenshots of his emails and the text from the new number. I showed her the letter where he threatened to come to my school. She took pictures of everything with her phone. Then she asked to see my wrist. There was still a faint bruise from where he had twisted it weeks ago. She took a picture of that too. She told me she believed me. She said she was horrified and ashamed. She said she had noticed Harold becoming more short-tempered over the past year but had thought it was just work stress. She said she had no idea he would ever put his hands on someone. She asked if I had filed a police report. I said no. She said I should consider it but that she would not push me. She said she was going to talk to Harold and that I should not worry about the apartment. She said she would make sure he did not bother me while I moved out. I felt relief for the first time in weeks. Carol left and told me to call her if I needed anything. That night Harold sent another text from the new number. This one just said that his mom had visited him and that I was going to regret opening my mouth. I did not respond. 2 days later I came home from work and found the lock on the apartment door had been changed. My key did not work. I called the landlord and he said Harold had called and reported losing his keys, so the landlord changed the locks and gave Harold new ones. The landlord said since Harold was the only name on the lease he could do that. All of my stuff was still inside. I called Carol and she said she would handle it. She called me back 30 minutes later and said Harold had agreed to let me in to get my things but only if she was there as a mediator. We scheduled it for that Saturday morning. I brought my friend Kayla, 25F, with me for support. Harold was there when we arrived. He would not look at me. Carol stood between us the whole time. It took 3 hours to pack everything. Harold made snide comments under his breath the whole time but Carol kept telling him to stop. When I was loading the last box into Kayla's car, Harold followed me outside. Carol was inside talking to the landlord about returning my rent money. Harold stood close to me and said that I had ruined his life. He said his mom and sister barely talked to him anymore because of my lies. He said I was a liar and a coward. I did not respond. I got in the car and Kayla drove away. I watched him get smaller in the side mirror. I did not feel triumphant or relieved. I just felt tired. Update 2. It has been about a month since I moved out. I am settling into the studio apartment. It is small, but it is mine. The walls are thin and I can hear my neighbor's TV at night, but I do not mind. I have been sleeping better knowing that Harold does not have a key. Jen finally reached out to me 2 weeks ago. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, but I was nervous. We met at the same cafe as before. She looked tired. She said that Carol had told her everything. She cried and apologized for not seeing it sooner. She said she should have known something was wrong when I would not talk to her after the breakup. She said she had confronted Harold and he denied everything at first, but then Carol showed her the screenshots and the pictures. Jen said Harold eventually admitted to grabbing my wrist but claimed the slap was an accident. He said I had walked into his hand while he was gesturing. Jen said she did not believe him. She said she had been thinking about all the times growing up when Harold had a temper and how their parents always brushed it off as normal sibling stuff. She said she remembered him twisting her arm when they were kids and how much it hurt. She said she was horrified that he had done the same thing to me. She asked if I would consider filing a police report. I told her I did not want to. I just wanted to move on. She respected that, but said she would support me if I changed my mind. She told me that she had distanced herself from Harold. She said their mom had too. She said their dad was still in denial and thought we were all overreacting. She said family dinners were tense now. I told her I was sorry for causing problems in her family. She said it was not my fault and that Harold was the one who caused the problems. We finished our coffee and hugged goodbye. It felt good to have her back in my life even though things were complicated. I thought that would be the end of the drama. I was wrong. Last week I got a message request on Instagram from a woman I did not know. Her name was Rachel, 28F. The message said she had seen my name mentioned in connection with Harold and wanted to warn me about him. I was confused because I had never posted anything publicly about him. I accepted the request and she sent me another message explaining that she had dated Harold about 4 years ago before he and I got together. She said they had dated for about 8 months. She said she broke up with him after he shoved her during an argument. I felt my stomach drop. I asked her for more details. She said they had been arguing about her wanting to spend time with her friends instead of him. She said he had gotten angry and accused her of cheating. When she tried to leave the room, he blocked the doorway. When she tried to push past him, he shoved her backwards and she fell and hit her head on the coffee table. She said she left that night and never went back. She said she did not tell anyone because she was embarrassed and thought people would not believe her. She said she had heard through mutual friends that Harold and I had broken up and that there were rumors about him being aggressive. She said she wanted to reach out to make sure I was okay and to let me know I was not the only one. I thanked her for reaching out. I asked if she would be willing to talk to Carol. She said yes. I called Carol and told her about Rachel. Carol asked if she could have Rachel's contact information. I sent it to her. Carol called Rachel that day. I do not know exactly what they talked about, but Carol called me afterwards and said she was glad Rachel had come forward. She said it confirmed her worst fears about Harold. She said she was going to insist that Harold go to anger management or she would cut him off financially. Harold still owed her money from when she helped him with a down payment on a car last year. Harold apparently did not take that well. Jen called me the next day and said Harold had shown up at her apartment yelling. He said Carol and I had ganged up on him and were trying to ruin his life. He said Rachel was lying for attention. Jen said she told him to leave and threatened to call the police if he did not. He left, but not before punching a hole in her hallway wall. She filed a police report for property damage. I thought about filing a report too, but I was scared of what Harold would do if he found out. Jen said she understood but encouraged me to at least document everything in case I needed it later. I started writing everything down in a notebook with dates and times. I had the screenshots already, but I wanted a physical record too. A few days after that, I was leaving my apartment to go to the grocery store when I saw Harold's car parked across the street. I froze. He was sitting in the driver's seat looking at his phone. I did not know if he had seen me. I went back inside and locked the door. I texted Jen and told her. She called me immediately and said she was calling the police. I told her not to. I did not want to escalate things. She said I needed to protect myself. We argued about it for a few minutes. Finally, I agreed to let her come over. She arrived 20 minutes later. Harold's car was gone by then. Jen said I needed to file a restraining order. I said I did not have proof he was threatening me. She said showing up outside my apartment was enough. I told her I would think about it. She stayed with me that night and slept on my couch. The next morning, she left for work and told me to call her if anything else happened. Harold's car showed up again 2 days later. This time I took a picture. Then I called the non-emergency police line. An officer came by and took a report. He said I could file for a restraining order but that I would need to show a pattern of behavior. He said the car being parked on a public street was not illegal unless Harold approached me or made threats. I felt helpless. That night Harold sent another message from a different new number. It said he just wanted to talk and that I was being unreasonable. It said we had 3 years together and I was throwing it away over nothing. I blocked the number. I knew there would be another one eventually. Update 3. It has been 2 months now since I moved out. I finally filed for a restraining order last week. The hearing is scheduled for next month. I gathered all the screenshots, the letters, the photos of the bruise, and the police reports from when his car was outside my apartment. Jan and Carol both agreed to provide statements. Rachel also agreed to provide a statement about her experience with Harold even though it was years ago. My lawyer said it was helpful to establish a pattern. Harold found out about the restraining order filing and sent a long email from a new account before I could block it. He said I was vindictive and cruel. He said he had made mistakes but did not deserve to be treated like a criminal. He said his career was being affected because word had gotten around about the situation. He said I had destroyed his relationship with his mom and sister. He blamed me for everything. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. She said it actually helped our case because it showed he was still trying to contact me despite me blocking him multiple times. Work has been my refuge. The school year is ending soon and I have been busy with end-of-year activities and helping my students prepare for their final projects. Some of my coworkers know bits and pieces of what happened. They have been supportive without being nosy, which I appreciate. The principal checked in with me last week to make sure I was safe. She said the front office staff had Harold's photo and would call the police immediately if he showed up. It was reassuring but also made everything feel more real. Jan and I have gotten closer through all of this. She comes over most weekends now and we cook dinner together or watch movies. She told me that Harold moved back in with their dad temporarily because he could not afford his apartment rent on his own. She said their dad still thinks this whole thing is overblown but at least he is not giving Harold money. Carol has not spoken to Harold in over a month. Jen said their mom is heartbroken but firm in her decision to maintain distance until Harold gets help. I saw on social media last week that Rachel had posted something vague about believing women and supporting survivors. She did not mention Harold by name but several people commented asking if she was okay. I texted her to check in. She said she was fine but that some mutual friends of hers and Harold's had reached out asking questions. She said a few people had not believed her but most had been supportive. She said 2 other women had reached out to her privately saying they had also had bad experiences with Harold. One of them was someone he had casually dated between Rachel and me. That woman said Harold had never physically hurt her but had been controlling and had shown up at her workplace unannounced multiple times after they broke up. I do not know what Harold is doing now. I blocked him everywhere and I do not ask Jen for updates unless it is something I need to know for safety reasons. Part of me wants to know if he is getting help or if he is getting worse. Part of me does not want to know anything at all. I just want to move forward with my life. The studio apartment is starting to feel like home. I bought some plants and put up some artwork. I rearranged the furniture 3 times before I found a layout I liked. Small things but they matter. I am sleeping through most nights now without waking up in a panic. I still check the locks twice before bed and I still look over my shoulder when I am walking to my car but it is getting easier. I am not dating. I am not even thinking about dating. People keep telling me that I will meet someone better when the time is right but that is not what I need to hear. What I need is to feel safe in my own life again. What I need is to rebuild trust in my own judgment. What I need is time. The restraining order hearing is in 3 weeks. My lawyer is confident but realistic. She said even if we get the restraining order Harold could still violate it. She said I need to stay vigilant and keep documenting everything. I have a folder now with everything organized by date. It is depressing to look at but necessary. Jan asked me the other day if I regretted staying with Harold after he twisted my wrist. I told her I regretted a lot of things but that regret does not change what happened. She said she wished she had seen the signs earlier. I told her it was not her job to protect me from her brother. She cried and said she still felt responsible. We sat on my couch and did not talk for a while. Sometimes there is nothing to say. I start therapy next week. Not because anyone told me I needed it but because I decided I wanted it. My insurance covers 8 sessions through a program at work. It is not much but it is something. I do not know what I'm going to talk about yet. Maybe the miscarriage. Maybe Harold. Maybe just everything. I am tired of carrying it alone.